Hey guys, it's Alexandra from Cre8tion Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a large granny stitch cowl. This cowl is made with a twist, and that is that as we work the foundation chain, before slip stitching the round to complete it, we twist it and then slip stitch join. And that allows us to work on both sides of the foundation chain. So as I work the first round, once I get back to the beginning, it automatically moves over so that I can work the granny stitch pattern on the other side of the chain. So by working one round, you're actually going to be completing 2 rounds. So it does take a little bit longer to complete, but you're going to get 2 rounds done at the same time. Here in the middle, you can see where my fabric is twisted. The reason I went with this for my cowl is because I wanted it to drape well around my neck. Sometimes when you make really large cowls or infinity scarves, they just don't lay naturally. So with this twist, it really just allows it to drape beautifully and comfortably. For my cowl, I'm using Emma's Yarn Washable Worsted. This is a worsted weight number 4 yarn. It is 100% superwash merino wool. This wool is soft, cozy, and squishy. It's not itchy. And it's hand dyed at my local yarn boutique, which is 4 Pearls Yarn Shop in Winter Haven, Florida. I love that they keep the same colorways in stock all year long. They do limited batches of some colors, like they have a yarn of the month that they only offer that colorway for that particular month. But colorways like this green one, which is called Freshly Cut, is available all year long, and I love that. So if you want to splurge on a yarn, I definitely recommend Emma's Yarn Washable Worsted. It is really lovely. Alternatively, Lion Brand Woolies is pretty similar, and We Crochet Swish, but you can use your favorite worsted weight yarn for this project. With this worsted weight yarn, I'm going to be using an H8 5mm crochet hook. I ordered this one from Sienna's Boutique on Etsy, and I really love it. There are lots of design options, great quality. I will link it in the description box below if you're interested, as well as the Emma's yarn and the alternatives. Gauge is not essential for this project unless the finished size is essential to you. We're not double wrapping it, and it's made to be oversized. If gauge is essential to you, the most important gauge is going to be the width gauge. The height gauge is very easy to adjust by working more or less rows. So for gauge, you may not want to work up the whole entire piece. As I mentioned before, working 1 round up is actually equal to working 2, so it's going to take a little bit longer. So you might want to work a smaller sample. Gauge is measured over 5 granny stitch clusters with its respective space and 5 rounds tall, with 1 round being 2 rounds, so it's actually 10 rounds tall. So you may want to work a chain so you can do 20 clusters in circumference. That way you can measure across from where a space is over to the end of the 3rd double crochet times 5 and check your gauge. 5 clusters should equal 4 inches wide. That's the space plus the 3 double crochets from the cluster. 5 of those is 4 inches wide. If you're measuring smaller than this, you want to go up a crochet hook size and rework your sample. If you're measuring larger than this, then you can go down a crochet hook size and rework your sample. Height-wise, for every 2 rounds, that's the cluster worked on the right and the left of the chain, that's classified as 1 round in this pattern. So 5 rounds is going to be 4 1/4 inches tall. If you want to count them individually, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the chain, 5 from the other side of the chain, and that will equal 4 1/4 inches. The height is much easier to work with because you can just add more rounds or take away rounds. We're going to start with a slip knot. I've pulled the yarn over my fingers here, wrap it around my index finger 2 times, hold the tension with my thumb and my middle finger. Pull the loop on the left up over the other one but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the loop on the left up over the other one and off my finger. Take my crochet hook, insert it into the loop on my finger and pull it off. Hold the working yarn in my right hand, pull the short tail end in my left so that knot goes to normal tension. I already worked mine up, so I'm just going to be working a small sample. The chain multiple for this is 3. If you'd like to alter the pattern, then you just need to make sure that your chain is a multiple of 3, meaning you can evenly divide it by 3. The number of chains divided by 3 is going to equal how many granny stitch clusters you're going to have. I'm going to work a chain 30 for mine. For your cowl, you're going to want to start with a chain of 162. To chain, we yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. This gives us 3 chains. Each one of those V shapes is a chain. I'm going to go ahead and work all my chains. There's my last chain for my sample. Normally, when we slip stitch join, we want to make sure we don't twist our foundation chain. For this project, we're adding a twist in there, so we want to twist the chain before we join. Here you can see the V-shaped stitches from the chains. That's the front of the chains. If you flip it over on the back, you see a bump there in the center. That's the back bump. That is the back of the chains. So if you lay your chains out with the front of the chains facing up, then take the very first chain on the bottom, the first one we worked, flip it over 180 degrees so that we're looking at the back of it. But over here where my hook is, at the end of my chains, we're still looking at the front. Then I'm going to pull this down so I can form a loop. And then I'm going to insert my hook into the very first chain, right into the center. Yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop that's on my hook to form a ring. And here you can still see on the left side we're looking at the back bumps. On the right side, we're looking at the front of the chains, and no matter how you twist it, they're not going to be even. They are twisted. That's exactly what you want. You want it to be twisted. And now we're ready to start our granny stitch pattern. I'm going to start with a chain 2. This is going to count as the first double crochet of our first granny stitch cluster. We're going to be working double crochets, and we're going to work into the back bump of the chain. So instead of inserting your hook into the chain, we're going to insert our hook in between the bottom leg and the back bump. And when you do that, you're going to have just one loop on your hook. And underneath that is the 2 loops from the V shape. I'm going to do that now in the first stitch here. Yarn over, insert my hook in between the loops, picking up just the back bump on my hook. I have just one loop there, and underneath it is the V shape from the chain. Then I'll yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Now it's really easy to see that as it's raised up. Yarn over, insert my hook to pick up that back bump. Then yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And that completes our first cluster with 3 stitches. We're going to skip each of the next 2 chains, and into the next chain we're going to work 3 double crochets. So yarn over, insert your hook in between the loops, picking up just the back bump on your hook, leaving the 2 from the V shape underneath. Yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Then I'll work 2 more double crochets. and that completes my second cluster. Skip each of the next 2 chains, and into the back bump of the next one, I'm going to work 3 double crochets, picking up just the back bump on my hook. We're going to continue in pattern, skip the next 2 chains, in the back bump of the next one, 3 double crochets, all the way around. As you work, you're going to keep the side up that is the back bumps facing, so you may need to twist it as you work until you get back to the beginning. There's my last granny stitch cluster. I have 2 chains left, and you can see all my stitches are in a circular shape right here. Right now you see the V-shaped stitches on the top and the chain is on the bottom. We're going to flip that 180 degrees so that now the double crochet stitches are on the bottom and the chain is on the top. And now we're going to work 3 double crochets into that very first chain where the 3 double crochets are coming out underneath. So yarn over, insert your hook into the first chain. This time you're inserting right into the center, picking up 2 loops on your hook from that V shape. Then complete your double crochet and work 2 more double crochets into that same exact chain. Now in that chain, there is a cluster on the bottom and a cluster on the top. Rotate your fabric so you can see the chain of the next cluster and work 3 double crochets into that chain, right in the center of it, picking up 2 loops from that V shape and complete your double crochet. And there we have a cluster on the bottom and a cluster on the top. Alright, there's my last double crochet cluster. I have a chain here, and then I'm back to the very first cluster of the round. I'm sure you noticed as you worked that you just rotated the fabric around to get to the next chain. Now that we're back to the beginning, we're going to go ahead and insert our hook into the top chain of the beginning chain 2. There's the chain 1 on the bottom, chain 2 on the top. Insert your hook right into the center. Then yarn over and pull through that stitch and the loop that's on your hook. You're going to slip stitch join each round the same way, and now round 1 is complete. And by working 1 round, we actually completed 2. So as we continue, each round that we add will actually add 2 rounds, even though the pattern counts it as 1. So the next round that we work will add 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom, and we'll work them all in the same motion all the way until we get back around, and then we'll join and you'll see those 2 extra rounds on there. All the remaining rounds are going to be worked exactly the same as this next one. We're going to chain 2, then we'll turn. This chain 2 counts as the first double crochet of our first cluster. Then we'll work 2 double crochets into this space that we have right underneath us. Insert your hook right into the center of the space, picking up the stitches on your hook there. Then complete your double crochet. There's one more. Complete our first granny stitch cluster. Yarn over, insert your hook right into the center of the space, picking up the stitches on your hook, and complete your double crochet. Continue working all the way around until you're back to the beginning. There's my last double crochet from the last granny stitch cluster of the round. We're going to slip stitch join to the top chain of the beginning chain 2. So chain 1 on the bottom, chain 2 on the top, insert right into the center of it, and then slip stitch join. And then to begin again, chain 2, turn, 2 double crochets into that space right underneath where you are, and then 3 double crochets into each space all the way around until you get back to the beginning where you'll slip stitch join to the top chain. For this oversized cowl, you'll have 24 rounds in total. Keep in mind that 1 round is actually equal to 2. It is the cluster that is on top of the chain and the cluster that is on the bottom of the chain. Those together count as 1. Once we get to the end, then we'll fasten off, leaving a tail end long enough to weave in. Pull up on the loop to break it, and then we'll weave in our ends. With this project being worked on both sides, I'm going to go ahead and just weave in my ends on whatever side they fall on. I'm not going to bring them to the front side or to the back side because it's a little bit hard to differentiate with the Mobius twist. I'm just going to go ahead and weave them in as they fall. So I'll grab my tapestry needle and then I'll meet you back here. Alright, I have the last tail end here. My tapestry needle, I'm going to go ahead and thread it. Most of the ends are going to be woven in exactly the same, so I'm only going to show you a couple of them. This is the last one that I finished off. As I work, I don't pick up the entire stitch on my needle. Instead, I insert my needle right into the center of the stitch, breaking it in half, and that helps capture my yarn better. I do this when I enter and when I exit my stitches. I like to work 3 passes, that seems to be my magic number. If you feel secure after 2, you can fasten off. If you feel like you need an extra pass, go ahead and work it. It's whatever you feel the most comfortable with your ends. I'm going to bring this tail end down to the second cluster here. So before I break my stitch in half, I'm just going to wrap it around this next stitch that is the closest, just so it puts me in that downward position. Now I'm going to break my first stitch in half, run it down through the bulkiness of the cluster and into the double crochet there on the left side, breaking my last stitch in half as I exit. and then I'll pull it through. And I'll pull a little tight. Use my fingers to manipulate the fabric if I need to so that this lays flat and doesn't bunch up. Then I'll work back in the opposite direction. I'm going to go to the stitch to the right, break it in half, run up through several of the stitches that I just finished working, through the bulkiness of that cluster above it, and break my stitch when I exit. Then I'll pull through. As I pull, I like to hold the fabric here in between my middle finger and my thumb. That way it doesn't bunch up and I can pull tight. Still use your fingers to manipulate the fabric if you need to. My third pass, inserting into a nearby stitch, breaking it in half, running downward through several of the stitches I just worked, breaking my last stitch in half as I exit. Give it a tug, manipulate the fabric, and then I can fasten off. For the other ends, it's going to be where I ran out of yarn and I reattached my yarn. So you're going to see them in the middle of a stitch here. I'm going to weave them in a similar manner. This one on the top, I'm going to weave it in to the cluster underneath it, just like I did that last one. And then this one on the bottom, I'm going to weave it in the opposite direction. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. You'll find the crochet pattern for this linked in the description box below. Please smash that like button and hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.